right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Episode 466 of the podcast. 466. Welcome to BD4. Going over this last Knicks game. They did it again. So we'll discuss it against the Raptors at the Garden on MLK Day yesterday. As I'm recording, it's January 17th. That should be the day this episode comes out as well. The night of January 17th is when this episode should drop. I did miss the game before that. Jesus, who was that? It wasn't the Wizards. It was between the Raptors and the Wizards game. Whoever that was, my memory is just dog shit. I was not able to do that episode. That was the day of the Giants game. So I had some people over and I watched the game, but not good enough to where I could have recorded an episode about it, and I was also busy. So we're back here in 466 talking Knicks. Let's get into it. Hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to BD4, an RJ Carbone podcast. BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. BD4 is a 5-star show on Apple Podcasts, also available in video format on YouTube and Spotify. So thanks for stopping by, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Champion of the world, turning, looking, see ya!
Anthony for three, bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied! Time!
Penetrates, creates, and showing some dexterity as well with the left hand.
Yankees win!
All right, welcome to the show. Welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Episode 466 of the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone, and you are listening to or maybe watching another episode of BD4. Welcome to the show. Now, if you are watching the video format of this podcast, and I happen to look up every here and there, that's just because I'm watching this Milwaukee Bucks Toronto Raptors game. So if I'm looking up here and there, that's why. It's a good game. It's a tight game. Enter the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter? Yeah. It is, Brook Lopez apparently plays defense. He's having a hell of a year defensively, and I didn't know that he was he always a good defender? But apparently he's playing good defense this year, and people are talking about him as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. It's the middle of the third quarter, 85-82. Bucks are up. This weekend was fun, man. This past weekend was good. The Giants picked up a big victory, obviously. That was a good game, man. They needed that. A lot of people were confident that the Giants could beat the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think a lot of people were too worried about it. Many were right that the Vikings, I guess they were overrated after all. Their defense couldn't stop the Giants, especially in that first half. Saquon Barkley was incredible in that first half. Thought he should have got some more carries in the second half, but good game. Giants offense looked good. Their defense did the job. The officiating was interesting, but who cares? Never going to complain about that. It was thrilling. It was fun, and I had a good time with friends and family watching that. And you know what I watched last night? And I hope you do too, because I recommend it. And we are always recommending shows on the show here. The Last of Us, dude. If you have no idea what that is, it's a zombie. It was originally a video game, but now they're making an adaptation into it, and they're making it a show. It's another one of those zombie apocalypse shows, and I can't get enough of that stuff. I'm into it. and I know a lot of America is. And a lot of people are hyping this thing up. A lot of people are hoping that it can be like the new Walking Dead, or what The Walking Dead couldn't exactly live up to in the end. And man, does it show some promise. And the first episode aired last night on HBO, and it set the scene with some great opening scenes. So you start in this 1968 time setting, where they're just showing us a quick excerpt of like some scientist and doctor, a couple of them, on this talk show. And the scientist is informing us about fungi and how he's not worried about a global pandemic, but he's worried about fungi and what can happen with fungus and like climate change when the weather gets warmer and shit. I'm not versed in that shit, but basically just very chilling, because one of his final lines was, well, if that happens, then we lose. And then the talk show host is just, you could see it in his face. It's just a very chilling opening scene, just foreshadowing, what they're going to set us up with. And then you get the second time setting, 35 years later, in 2003, where our main character, the dude, Pedro Pascal, I believe his name is, the actor, he's playing as some guy, Joel, does like blue collar work, and he's living with his adopted daughter and his brother. They're living in Austin, Texas together. So they set us up, and you could see throughout the setup that they're slowly hinting that it's coming, this virus. It's kind of like a calm before the storm type of thing. Like, it's a nice, quiet, sunny day in Austin. Typical, average day. The daughter goes to school. Guy goes to work. Right? But you kind of slowly get the hints. You get the reports on the radio in the morning when they're eating breakfast. I believe like just other people are just very subtly coughing in the background. You get mentions of accidents on the road from the daughter. Then you see the planes go over their house. The whole scene when the daughter goes to the neighbor's house, and the old lady, you could see out of focus, but in the background is just like creepy as hell. She's twitching. She starts opening her mouth, and you can see she's starting to turn, and she's one of the first few infected that we see. And they just start showing you slowly that it's happening. It's insane. And then it happens. Overnight, it's like 2 a.m. The daughter wakes up and stuff's going on. And it's just chaos. She goes over. That's how she discovers the grandma, the neighbor. She's like eating a person. And it gets crazy. And I always love seeing like zombie shows and films when the outbreak first happens. I like that part of it. And they did it perfectly. Anyways, it's complete chaos. It's dark outside when it happens. They're trying to get to some river across from the golf course, so they're trying to find a pathway where nobody else is. Vehicles are exploding, and these zombies, or whatever we're supposed to call them, they're just creepy as hell. They're not walking. They're sprinting. They're jumping at you, diving, and they're coming for you. And they got shit coming out their mouth. It's really ugly looking. And then eventually, the three of them, they get caught by this soldier. And he shoots them while they're on the run, because you can't risk it and everything. He's trigger happy, and he shoots them. The daughter dies. It's very sad. It's a very emotional scene, all that stuff. And then suddenly we cut, and I just spit 20 years later. We go to present day. Present day in 2023. So here we are. We got our story in the second portion of the episode. It's definitely slower, but it's a good setup. It's a good start. So it's Boston 2023. You got your main character. He's out there. 20 years later, you see him hustling, doing odd jobs for this, I guess, corporation called Fedra. He's doing jobs for them, and he's kind of selling hard drugs on the side, which is funny or interesting. I shouldn't say funny, because the daughter kind of joked about that herself in the 03 timeline. But he's getting by. He's living with his girlfriend or wife, whatever she is to him. And they're just trying to get money to buy this battery back. They need a battery for their truck so they can reunite with Joel's brother from earlier in the episode, right? The guy we were introduced to, Tommy. So they're on that storyline, and then they introduce us to Ellie, who's going to be the other main character eventually, right next to Pedro Pascal's Joel. She's this teenage chick, right? And she's being held captive by this group called Fireflies. I guess they're like the resistance against the Fedra group, who was just shooting people willy-nilly. And she's important because she's like she's supposed to be the last hope to survive this infection. She's not like affected by it. So, while we're looking for our battery, that's how we run into Ellie. And the firefighter people tell us that, that Joel and his girlfriend have to move Ellie to the safe house because they couldn't do it for some reason. I forget why. So they leave with her and they begin their quest. And that's kind of towards the end of the show. But like right after they leave, I guess Joel communicates with Tommy through the radio coding with different songs of different time periods. That's how he's been communicating. And right after they leave, one of the songs that plays on the radio is this 80s song, which is supposed to indicate trouble everywhere. It's dangerous. So that's, I guess, what we're eventually going to find out. They're going to find out that it's a hellstorm out there, and it's going to open up a whole can of worms. And they already killed a guy. They killed a soldier. Joel killed him, who we saw him deal drugs with earlier in the show. They ran into him trying to escape the quarantine zone. So it's going to be nuts. It's going to be awesome. I'm very into it already. And I do like how they didn't just drop all the episodes. I believe it's going to be a week-to-week thing, which is good. It's old school TV. That's how it was when I grew up. All right? All you Zoom boys growing up with this streaming shit, get your shows all at once. That kills the fun. The anticipation is part of it. So I'm going to watch it week by week, hoping it can kind of be what I hope The Walking Dead would end up being. But yeah, I barely played, like back when I was in high school, the Last of Us video game came out, maybe 2013 or something like that. I barely played maybe like the opening stages of it. So I don't remember anything. I don't even know if I got far. Maybe not even like 10% into the game. So I don't remember anything about it. And I'm kind of glad that I'm going into this pretty blind, because in my opinion, that's going to make it more exciting, not knowing what's ahead. And I'm sure it'll change a little bit, but I've also heard people are saying that it's like an epic adaptation already, and that some scenes are like 100% precisely the same as the video game scenes, which is cool. Like literally to a T, with some of the mannerisms and gestures from the extras and the clothes. It's pretty cool to hear that. But yeah, the acting was phenomenal. And it's got Game of Thrones characters, the two main characters from Game of Thrones. Bella Ramsey, she plays Ellie. She was the little Mormont girl in Game of Thrones. Mormont, Jorah Mormont's whatever. Lyanna, I think her name was. And then Pascal, he played in Game of Thrones as the funny dude who fought the mountain, and he got too cocky at the end, and he was just bludgeoned to death. So I forget who he was or which family. But yeah, she was the Mormont chick, and then he was I don't know. I forget. I don't know what Hightower? No. But yeah, it's cool, dude, and I'm into it. But hey, we're here to talk Knicks, so hopefully I didn't just waste your time there. But as you know, there are timestamps in the description of this episode. So let's talk Knicks. When we get back from break, we'll get right into it. Be right there. Stay with us. Hey guys, so if you are a listener of the podcast often and you want to know where to find me on social media, you can find me on Facebook at BD4. You can find me on Twitter at BD4Pod. And you can also find me on Instagram at RobJCarbone. All right. Welcome back to the show. I am your host, RJ Carbone, and you are listening to episode 466 of the podcast. Welcome. So the Knicks last night, they blew it late in overtime against the Raptors. 120 was it? I'm sorry, I don't have that right here. Put the wrong score up on the screen if you're watching the video format. 121 to 123 in the Raptors' favor. So that was the score of this game. 121 to 123. 123 to 123. Fuck me. 123-121. The Raptors beat the Knicks. The Knicks are losing a tough one at home, and they fall to a pretty pathetic 11-12 at the Garden. That's kind of annoying. Of the 20 NBA teams who are so far in play-in or better position, the Knicks are the only team who are below 500 at home. So it's Madison Square Garden. You got to show up there. But I just, at the end of the day, they're exceeding expectations overall. So, but it was a tough, slow, very slow, gritty, physical game. A lot of fouling. Neither team shot the ball particularly well. A lot of, points inside the paint. Also points, a lot of, free throw points. Both teams were kind of just back and forth all day. No team really had a legitimate lead. But, Brunson, Randle, RJ, some early baskets in the first quarter each. Come the second quarter, the Knicks kind of falling flat and then giving up some easy inside looks to Barnes, Siakam. Each of them had over 20 points. The Raptors were also just contesting the Knicks' shots pretty well in the second. Brunson and RJ get hot towards the end of the period, enter in halftime. They help put the Knicks up 3, 59-56. Out of the break, you get Brunson and RJ again. This time they start getting into the paint and attacking the smaller defenders on Toronto. Van Vliet keeps them afloat, though, with a couple of threes. Raptors sticking around. But in the fourth quarter, I thought the ball movement looked excellent to start. Knicks kind of get hot. 6-0 run to start the period. They go up 10 points with 9 minutes left in the game. They go up 9 points with about 5.5 left after the Mitchell Robinson slam. But, some tough fouls, some free throws, a floater by Siakam, big baskets from Barnes. Van Vliet, who had 33, helps climb the Raptors back into this game. But towards the end, Scotty Barnes, after he sinks a bunch of free throws in the final minutes, misses a pretty big one in the final seconds. I think there was 6 or 7 seconds to go. He misses a big free throw. RJ grabs the board. RJ goes coast to coast, and he throws down a game-saving dunk in the final seconds of the game to tie the game. And then it was amazing. And then with 0.6 left on the clock, barely enough time for the Raptors to get a catch and shoot off. They inbound the ball, but it's Randle who makes a very nice deflection to just poke the ball out and officially send the Knicks to overtime. But in overtime, The Knicks just with no rhythm, no true offense out there. They fold and come up short. And of course, Brunson gets that one final look, running the floor, pulls up for a three, solid look, comes up short. So yeah, another blown lead. This one not as drastic, but still a blown lead. Some missed free throws once again late fourth quarter. Randle and Brunson both late in the fourth. The final minute, they each missed a free throw. And then, again, a big-time miss. Big-time miss at the end of the OT period by Jalen Brunson for that three. And he's now 1 for 7 in the last 10 seconds of a three-point game. So, take that as you may. And I want to start with Jalen Brunson because I thought overall, Jalen Brunson yesterday, he had a very uncharacteristic, inefficient game. I did not love what I saw from him. You look at the stats, 29 shots versus 26 points, as well as 2 assists versus 4 turnovers. I mean, that's got to be, like, I'm serious when I say this. He's played 40-something games. That's got to be the very first game ever as a Knick from Brunson where he's had both more shots than points and turnovers than assists in a game. It's got to be the first time. Because he was awful in that aspect. And he's usually struggling against Toronto. They give him trouble. I think it's because their length and their physicality, so it's more difficult for him to finish in the paint like he usually does. And he was just a little too ISO heavy yesterday. Too much isolation. And, with him shooting only 38% in the game, it kind of had everybody else going ISO too. And it just wasn't a good look. And then he, of course, choked at the free throw line, choked at the overtime for 3. But that's whatever. He hasn't really knocked those down all year. To me, it was just the inefficiency overall and not really being more willing to pass. I'm not going to nitpick because this is a guy who has been near perfect for the Knicks, and he's been their best player. He's been their leader. It's just a rare bad game. So whatever. That's Jalen Brunson. Who cares? He had a bad game. I do wish he started making those final shots, but we got to live with that. Julius Randle, 21 points, 15 rebounds, 8 assists, near triple-double. He had a steal, 3 turnovers, shot 7 of 20, 1 of 6 from 3, and 6 of 9 at the stripe. But first off, the rebounding has been incredible. I mean, he's looking like prime Andre Drummond out there with these numbers. He's just grabbing boards. The last time Julius had less than 15 rebounds in a game was 6 games ago on January 6th against Toronto. He's averaging 15 boards a game in his last 11. Each of them have been double-doubles. And he's averaging 13 boards a game in his last 21. He is on fire when it comes to crashing the glass. And that's effort. The effort has been incredible on both sides of the glass. The offensive rebounds have been there, just absolutely robust. And the effort on defense as a whole was good last night. He made some nice switches. He did miss a few rotations. Some more that he has recently, but I thought he played good defense. And again, that deflection towards the end of regulation was good. Offensively, he definitely struggled. He started off pretty well. 3-point ball, and he had a couple more dunks again. He's been throwing it down lately. But then he started struggling second half. Toronto was throwing the zone out there at the Knicks. They couldn't figure that out. But they were also just throwing multiple doubles at Julius very frequently in the second half. And I was getting mad at it because He couldn't get any shots off from my parlay, but he finally got it in overtime, the 20 points that I needed. So he went 3 for 12 with 9 points in the second half, including the overtime period. But yeah, both he and Brunson definitely cooled off down the stretch. And, is it Thibodeau's fault for running these guys heavy minutes? Both games of a back-to-back? I don't think so. I think you can make a case that he should probably, lighten the load. But I also think that's just part of being an NBA player. And these are young guys. The Knicks don't have a guy over 30 out there. It's the NBA. It's overtime. There will be trials and tribulations. You're going to be fatigued. If the Knicks had more depth on the bench, maybe Tibbs would trust them. Right? But this time I can't blame Tibbs because the Knicks don't have much of a bench outside of Quickley. It's pretty dog water. Like, I will say, all right, Tibbs wasn't perfect yesterday, and I definitely thought Immanuel Quickley, despite the foul trouble, should have got more than 21 minutes in this game. I definitely thought Quentin Grimes should have gotten more looks than the 5 field goal attempts he had in nearly 40 minutes of action. He scored 10 points on 3 of 5 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3. 7 boards, 2 dimes, a steal, a block. He played really well. He attacked the paint a few times and knocked down a couple 3 balls. But the ISO-heavy offense took away Grimes' reps. I don't know why they didn't give it to him. I just don't think it's very acceptable for an offense who can't shoot well and shot 29% on the night from 3 or the afternoon to give their best 3-point shooter 4 looks from outside the arc and 5 looks total in a game that goes to overtime. Like, why not feed him? You're 3 for 5. Double that. Give him more looks. He's your best 3-point shooter. You lost the game by a couple points. So I didn't like that. I think sometimes we run offense and it's just way too much one-on-one. And in games where Brunson is off, like yesterday, it's going to look especially ugly because he's an ISO guy, Brunson, let's be honest. But he's usually very efficient at it. And I also thought with Toronto in foul trouble themselves, I think it was OG, it was Van Vliet, Siakam. They all had a bunch of foul problems in the later 2 frames, the fourth quarter and overtime. They were in some big foul trouble. I feel like Tibbs could have exploited that a lot more. He could have attacked the paint off the dribble. Run double screens out there. Get guys in the low post. Cut the ISO crap out once and for all. When Quickley wasn't on the floor, you noticed the slower pace. Move guys around weak side. And that's where you need to utilize Grimes and get him on those catch and shoots. Right off that elbow that Clyde was mentioning. But all in all, I'm not going to totally blame Thibodeau for this game like the internet will have you believe it's his fault every time the Knicks lose. I didn't think he was perfect. I didn't think this was one of his better games. But I'm not going to totally blame him. Anyways, I thought Mitchell Robinson was okay yesterday. It was a 3 p.m. MLK Day game, so I'm not used to those. Mitch scored 11 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, a block across 36 minutes. The Raptors did a very nice job without a true big man. They did a really nice job just throwing bodies down low and trying to keep Mitch off the defensive glass. And so they were doing that well. And, that small ball style also drove Mitch out the paint as he had to focus a lot of his defense closing out on the perimeter in this game. So that aided the Raptors into cleaning up those misses on the offensive glass without Mitch down there often. Barnes was a big factor on the offensive glass for Toronto. Siakam, OG, the guy off the bench, Chris Boucher. They all did a fair share of their damage on there. But I thought offensively Mitch Robinson was very good, scoring more often than he usually does, bringing high energy with those dunks. He was running the floor noticeably well, rim to rim. 5 offensive rebounds to keep the Knicks alive on these possessions. So he was good. Obi Toppin, if you go to the bench, I'm kind of just jumping around here. 5 points in the first half, a 3-ball, and a fast break slam dunk. I don't know what that was, but nothing after. Just 4 minutes in the entire second half. I'm hoping he finds it sooner rather than later, and Thibodeau extends his minutes a little more. This way, Randle isn't so gassed at the end of these games. Maybe that can help. I don't know. But one of the positives of the night, probably the most effective player for the Knicks on the team last night was RJ Barrett.
Bing bang.
And RJ gets a game ball from me. That's his 6th of the year. 32 points, 7 rebounds, couple assists, 3 turnovers, and he played 49 minutes. He shot 10 out of 23, 2 of 9 from 3. Slow first half, but he had a big-time second half where he scored 22 and he shot 7 of 12. Came out the gate very strong in the third quarter, knocked down some big free throws in the second half, and of course, again, the coast-to-coast highlight slam to force overtime, putting Barnes on a poster. That was his key play, The jump shot's not there yet with him. You can see that he's still trying to find the stroke since returning from the hand injury. But he did do a nice job attacking switches and post-up. A lot of mismatches with Gary Trent and Van Vliet also. He ended up finishing 8 of 14 inside the arc. And overall, since coming back, he's been getting downhill very, very, very well since returning. He's still playing downhill. It's just really the jump shot that's not come. But it was really good to see him go 10 of 11 from the foul line yesterday because he was struggling from there prior to. And then defensively, Barnes is a tough assignment. RJ was kind of overmatched with that size disadvantage. He's not easy to cover with the size and the ability to move like he does. And a lot of the time the Knicks were sending help. They sent help over to Barnes. We saw Grimes hedge over onto him. We saw Deuce and Mitch with some last-second help. Randle. So he's a tough cover. But, yeah, it was a good game for RJ Barrett. Gets the award. And as, per my rule, when you do something clutch like that in the final seconds, you have a much better chance of getting the game ball. So, yeah, RJ was good. Here we go. Also, Knicks fans, I didn't want to bring this up, but, Knicks fans are crying about officiating again. I understand. I get it, but I'm not doing that. I never do it. I'm not ever going to do it. The day I do, point it out to me and send it to me. Clip the screen share, whatever you call it, and send it to me. Because it'll be the first time in 10,000 something days I've lived on this earth that I complain about officiating. I never do, and I'm tired of people who do. We're complaining that RJ didn't get a whistle on that slam dunk. But if the roles were reversed, and let's say Scotty Barnes did that, he dunked it, and RJ tapped him, and the refs called it, I know that 90-something% of you would be crying and complaining about how you're not supposed to blow the whistle in the final seconds like that. You got to let them play. Right? There's always something. There was the same shit with Brunson fouling Van Vliet in the OT period, the challenge, whenever that was. It's just part of the game, whatever. Like I'm just as a sports fan, as somebody who watches a few sports, I'm tired of seeing sports fans bitch and moan about officiating, umpiring, judging, like it's especially bad in their sport. And again, I say zoom out. We got to zoom out. Because when you bring it up to them, if I go and tell a sports fan of a certain sport, yeah, your officials are bad. The officials are bad in all sports. They're going to tell you right back, but no, it's especially bad here with this league, with this team. Like, no, it's not. Baseball fans want robot umpires. UFC fans think something should be done because they think a fighter's getting robbed every other close fight. Basketball fans, same shit. Football, I'm sure, is the same with you people. You guys are all, you're all sheep. You don't see it because you're all so fucking, you're so far deep down in that anti-officiating rabbit hole, you don't see it. It's like with politics, right? Both sides, losers. Absolute fucking losers. Both sides of you. Because they're never going to admit which side is right and wrong. They're never going to admit when their side is wrong. It's just like these stupid people blaming officials all the time. That's how sports work. We're always going to complain about it. But at the end of the day, it's never going to be the reason you lose a game. Back to some positive. Immanuel Quickley, I thought, played a good game yesterday. That's why he's getting the game ball off the bench.
Bing bang.
Quickley against the Raptors, 14 points, 3 of 7 shooting, shot 2 of 3 inside the arc, 7 of 7 at the line with a block. He had some open lanes yesterday. Took advantage with defenders closing out too much, too hard. Worried about his 3-point shot. A few nice drives. A couple nice finishes. Drew contact frequently. Again, the foul trouble. The 5 fouls were unfortunate, but again, I still thought he should have played a little more. And that's Quickley's day right there. Anyways, that's it. The Knicks lose. Tough, bad loss, whatever. Got to bounce back and beat the Washington Wizards tomorrow, which I think is at the Garden. And again, during this 5-game stretch we've been on, I said before, 2 games ago, I said the Knicks should take 3, preferably 4 of these games, right? And I called that they would lose at least one of the Toronto games. We have one more coming up. But we defeated Detroit and lost to Toronto so far. So we're 1-1. We've got Washington, Atlanta, and Toronto up next. So you hope that you can beat 2 of those 3 at the absolute worst. Right? So that's it. We'll head to break, get back, wrap this shit up with the question of the day, and then maybe we'll run through our parlay that we had for this game too. Stay with us. We will be right back.
BD4 is located on many different platforms. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and if you do there, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and review. You can listen to it on Spotify, but you can also watch the podcast on both Spotify and YouTube. BD4 is available on many other platforms as well. All you got to do is search it up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and much more. We also have a website now for BD4. If you go to BD4blog.com, you can find the blog, the podcast links, and also where to find me on social media. Just go to BD4blog.com.
All right, welcome back to the show. Let's get to our trivia question of the day. All right, so for this episode 466, our NYY-NYK-MMA trivia question of the day is: Hall of Famer Phil Jackson had a 12-season NBA career. In how many of them did he play for teams other than the Knicks? All right, Hall of Famer Phil Jackson had a 12-season NBA career. And how many of them did he play for teams other than the Knicks? So let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. One last time, Hall of Famer Phil Jackson had a 12-season NBA career. And how many of them did he play for teams other than the Knicks? All right, so that's our trivia. We'll wrap it up this time with our parlay. Usually we go the other order, but let's get to our let's talk about this parlay. We had two. All right, welcome to RJ's Parlay, where my degenerate self breaks down tonight's big parlay. If I miss, it's not surprising. If I hit, I'll probably lose it all tomorrow night, because that's how this works. Welcome to RJ's Parlay. So our first parlay the other day was a 5-pick parlay. It was boosted, so the odds went to plus 357. And we cashed. We absolutely cashed in overtime. It took all 5 periods to cash it, but we did. We had the alternate over. It was one of the alternative over-unders. I had over 208.5 on the Knicks game. I had Brunson for 30-plus points, rebounds, assists. I had RJ for 25-plus points, rebounds, assists. Grimes for 12-plus points, rebounds, assists. And then I had Randle for 20-plus points. And we went 5 for 5. So we cashed our plus 357. It took Randle till the very last minutes of overtime. I was on the edge of my seat because it was some big money for me. It was a decent wager. And he just got it. Those doubles were killing me, man. I'm telling you. And our second parlay was on, whoops. Let's see if we can get to it here. Was on the Monday Night Football game. The Monday Night Football game, the playoff game between the Cowboys and the Bucks, which ended up being a disaster for the Bucks. Actually, I think it was closer towards the end. I don't know. I didn't watch it. I just had money on it. I had a 2-pick one. I had the spread and the over. I had the over was it was 45.5 for that game. I'm not sure that hit. And then the Tampa Bay plus 2.5 spread did not hit, so I might have went over 2 on a plus 280 2-picker. But that's it, guys. Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host RJ. Gonna go watch the rest of this Bucks Raptors game, and I'll see what's. I wonder what the second game is. No, I can't see it. I'm gonna look it up. If it's a good game, I'll watch it. Second game. Oh, it's Sixers Clippers. Maybe I'll watch that. All right, guys. Thank you, and I'll see you in 467. Later. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.